Hi guys, it's Aoife from Words of Clover and I'm here with another video in my book match series that I have been doing over the last couple of years on BookTube, and one I have really enjoyed. So for this video, and I do have a little guest here who is going to probably be biting me throughout this entire video, so if you see a little head pop up now and again, you know who it is. So normally in these videos what I do is I have a bunch of booktubers that I've chosen to match a book with based on what I know from viewing their channels and their own tastes, things that they've liked and disliked. I then recommend a book that I myself have enjoyed or read, and one that I think that they would really like as well. So for this one I thought I would switch things up a little bit and just do something a little bit different, a little bit more fun, and this is one where you guys who are watching have a lot of control, and this is one where I'm kind of placing the matchmaking, I guess, back to you, and I'm going to be telling you guys some books that I really love, some of my all-time favourite reads, and based on what I love about those books, I want you guys to try and recommend me some books that you might think that I like based on those books that I have talked about. So this is basically a reverse book match. So one of the first books I want to talk about is one of my all-time favourite books. I've mentioned it plenty of times before on my channel. I've done a whole video about why I love this book so much, and that is of course The Bronze Horseman by Paullina. Now this is part of a trilogy, and this is the first book in this, like, basically this trilogy that spans decades of these two people's lives, and we are following a girl called Tatiana who is in Leningrad during World War II, and we see her fall in love with this soldier called Alexander, and because of certain reasons Tatiana and Alexander can't be openly together, and then the siege of Leningrad happens and Tatiana ends up kind of becoming the main provider of her family, and she ends up having to look after her family, and through Alexander's help also manages to, you know, survive this terrible siege. So this, as I said, it's a sweeping historical romance. There's just so much angst in this. There's love, there is death, there is like famine, there's, you know, as I said, there's some war-torn scenes in this book. It's very dramatic at times. Like, this is a dramatic romance, but it is one that I just fell head over heels in love with the first time I read this book when I was a teenager, and I've read it several times since then, and it just stands up for me as one of my favourite books of all time. Absolutely love it. I do really enjoy historical fiction, historical romance. I really enjoy anything set around World War II. I love kind of books as well that maybe are set in kind of locations that haven't been much, like, I guess, written about in like fiction, and like, you know, you do see a lot of books set in France or set in England, where this is set in Russia, and this is a little bit different for me. I haven't read a whole lot of World War II fiction set in Russia. So that is also part of the reason why I love this book. I really just loved the Russian setting. I love finding out about like how they grew up. Yeah, I really love this book, and I would love to know any recommendations based on this book that I could read. The next book I want to talk about is Malice by Gwynne. Again, this is a book series that I absolutely love. I'm actually planning on doing a whole reread of this series for November. So Malice is the first book in a 4-part series in The Faithful and the Fallen, and we first start following a character called Corbin when he's only about 10 or 11 years old, and this plays a little bit on the trope of the chosen one, and we follow Corbin as he learns this kind of prophecy which seems to be about him, and we start following him as he learns how to fight. We follow the group of friends that surround themselves like with him, his mentor, his family, his sister, and then there's a couple of other characters that start coming into the book during this book. And then one of the things I really loved about this book as well is the inclusion of animal companions. So there's a horse that Corbin adopts, and there's also a wolf pup that he adopts that becomes like his, you know, his best friend, and I just really loved that about this book. Now we don't just follow Corbin, we follow a whole host of other characters that all have their own part to play in this really big war that is coming. There's also these angel-like creatures and demon-like creatures that again are on both sides of this like impending war, and this is the book where, as I said, we start following Corbin when he's only about 11 years old, and by the time of the last book, Corbin is in his late teens, like early 20s. So we do like follow him for like a large span of his years. We follow a lot of his development as both like a warrior, as a character, and again, the same with his friends, his family, and there's also some I guess supernatural type creatures, not just angels and demons, but there's also giants in this book, half giants, and we follow them as well. But also I would really love to know other like fantasy books that are similar to this. You guys know me, I really enjoy like a high fantasy book, and I really enjoy books like this where, you know, you're following a character for a large portion of their life as well. You're really seeing them develop from a young boy to a young man, or a young girl to a young woman, and you're seeing the progression of their skills, the maturity level, you know. Yeah, it's so much fun for me as a reader. I really enjoyed that. I love becoming really immersed in the world, becoming really attached to these characters as well. So by the time the last book comes around, like, you really feel on the edge, and you're really afraid for your characters, and you do, like, if any of them are lost, you do grieve them quite deeply as a reader. And I just really love being attached to books and to characters like that. Can you stop? Thank you. Want my sleeve back? Thank you. Thank you. Now you're gonna be good. Go play with your duck. Get your duck. Go on, get your duck. And lie down. Oh, good girl. The next book I want to talk about is Stay the Distance. This is a horse girl novel that I really love. This book, we follow a young girl who, she's a teenager. She is kind of in that between zone where she doesn't really know exactly, well, she knows what she wants to do, but she's trying to figure out how to get there. She works in a racing stables, but her true passion is actually dressage, and she ends up looking into like getting this horse, this ex-race horse that she thinks might actually end up being a really good dressage horse. And I just really love this for, like, there's like the kind of the YA growing up element to it, but also I just really love all the horse things in it. I always enjoy a good horsey novel, I don't think I've read enough of them, so I'm always on the lookout for some really great ones. A lot of them that I find online are self-published, which is fine, but I'd also love to know if there's any out there that are traditionally published that I might not know about. And yeah, I just love to collect more horsey books because I really enjoy reading YA or adult. The fourth book I want to talk about is Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. This again is the first book in a long series. The last book is actually going to be coming out in November, which I'm very excited about. It is called Leviathan Falls. And this book is just so much fun. We are following the crew of a ship called the Rocinante, which they call the Rossi, which is actually where she gets her name, which is, so this book again is special for a lot of reasons, one of which is that we named our dog after the book. We're following the crew of the Rocinante as they discover something a little bit alien while they're out in space. And this alien kind of, it's not really a virus, it's kind of like a thing that can infect people, and it almost can create these type of like zombie like creatures, but it's a lot more complicated like that than that, and it kind of develops throughout the series, and you learn a lot more about this alien entity and what it can actually do. But beyond that, you also have just a lot of like intergalactic space things happening. You know, there's Earth, there's Mars, there are different space stations around, and people are kind of there's like different factions of people have different politics, they align with different sides when it comes to like different things to do with like the space laws. We're following all of that as it happens as well. This is just a really well paced like sci-fi adventure. It's one that if you can get into it, you can like really fly through. There's characters that you can just really bond with. Again, we're following characters over quite a long period of time as well, so you get to really know them throughout the book series, and it's just so much fun. Again, sci-fi is something that I do really enjoy, but it's also something that I'm still kind of experimenting with what I like. This type of like adventure, fast-paced story, like really well-paced story, is one I really like. And I've like read other ones a little bit like Revenger by Alistair Reynolds and These Cruel Stars by John Birmingham that are similar in that vein that I've also really enjoyed. So yeah, I would love to like know just more sci-fi recommendations similar to Leviathan Wakes that you guys would recommend to me to read. And the last book I want to talk about is actually a non-fiction book, and that is The Radium Girls by Kate Moore. This book takes a look at the women and girls who worked in these factories using radium to paint clock dials around the time of the First World War and after that, and kind of kind of takes a look at how, first of all, radium was thought about this. It was kind of like this wondrous thing. People thought that it was going to be really, really good for you, that you would like take radium like supplements every day and it would make you really, really healthy. Well, where obviously we as readers in 2021 know that radium is poisonous to you, and we find out about these girls how they used to literally kind of ingest the radium through the painting process. They used to kind of lick the tips of the paintbrushes to make them pointy to do their work, which meant that they were actually ingesting radium. The radium paint that they were using, they were like breathing it in, and it ended up with disastrous consequences that they got really, really bad radium poisoning. And then these women, through kind of their really, really horrible illness, they worked together to try and fight against the big corporations who, you know, basically put their health and their lives at risk, basically like made them terminally ill just for, you know, for money. They never looked into if radium was actually, you know, good for you, and they just let these girls use radium without any protective gear. And we look at how these women, their families, like really fought for these women's rights, even as they were dying, even after they had died. They just fought just to get that right, that, you know, things had been done wrong and they deserved an apology, deserved reparation. And yeah, like it's such a great book. But one of the things I really, really love about this, not only is it like female focused, which I really, really enjoy, I generally, a lot of my non-fiction I tend to read tends to be female focused. It's just what I enjoy when it comes to my non-fiction. But what I also really, really enjoyed was the fact that I think Kate Moore as an author, she didn't keep herself at arm's length with these women, with the people she was telling a story about, which I think you can find sometimes with authors when they're talking about like subjects in non-fiction books. They might, you know, there is definitely a distance between them and their subjects. But I really felt with this one, as Kate Moore went and she talked to the remaining family of these women, she talked to people who were with these women, who knew their family members, who you know, somehow were connected to all these girls, and she got to know who they were, not just who they were during their illness, not who they were during their fight against these big companies, but also like what these girls liked, how they dressed, what they liked to do for fun, you know, the type of like guys they dated, you know, the beginnings of their relationship with the men who would become their husbands, all these like really lovely things in their life, and the things that made them who they were. She found that out and she talked about it, and I feel like it really helped to build up these girls in my head. These just like ordinary, normal girls going out to do their job and then coming home to put on a nice dress and go out dancing. And I really loved that, getting to know the girls in that way, and they became really alive for me, and I became more invested in the book and more invested in the story of the lawsuits, because I wanted to see them get justice, not only because, you know, it's the right thing to do, but because I really felt for these girls. I felt like I knew them because of Kate Moore's like style of writing and because of the strength of her writing, and I just really, really enjoyed that. So yeah, I feel like I kind of felt a little bit the same with The Five by Hallie Rubenfold. That's another book, a really great book, where I feel like these women in history like really become alive and you really get to know just who they were, not just what happened to them. Yeah, so I really, really love that type of, I guess, non-fiction writing. And yeah, I just would really love to know any more like non-fiction, female focused non-fiction books that people would recommend, because I'm always up for reading more. Those are all the books that I really, really love, and that I would love to know if there's any books similar to those that I would enjoy, that you guys might know about, that I might not know about. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave me all your books that you would recommend in the comments. I would love to know. I'm really excited to find out what type of books people would recommend to me, and I will see you guys again next time. Bye.